It wasn't that long ago that it felt like Revolution Beauty were everywhere you looked. They were all over YouTube for the longest time when they were like brand new, and they were very popular in the early days of beauty YouTube. Then they went on to like viral TikTok dupes and constant influencer collaborations, to partnering with Love Island and having entire walls of their palettes in Superdrug. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing or hearing about Revolution Beauty. But fast forward to 2025, and things look very different. Now, I have talked about Revolution Beauty before in a whole previous video, so if you want a bit of a deeper dive into the drama and controversies surrounding the brand in more detail, check that video out. But today I'm just focusing on what the hell is going on at Revolution and the desperate attempt to reinvent themselves and come back from the grave. The brand that once looked like it might genuinely revolutionize the beauty industry has been bogged down in lawsuits, leadership drama, plummeting sales, and a consumer base that's kind of just over it. So what happened? How did one of the most popular beauty brands of the 2010s spiral into controversy and chaos? Now, I know I've talked about Revolution Beauty before and their past, I was gonna say conspiracies, controversies, but a lot has happened since then to now. And in this video, I want to take a deeper dive into their background, how the brand rose so rapidly in such a crowded beauty market, how things have gone so horribly wrong for them in recent years, and answering the question, is Revolution Beauty finally dead? Revolution Beauty's story started in the UK with two men, Adam Minto, who had worked in the beauty industry for decades, who we've talked about before for all the wrong reasons, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And he actually left his role as CEO of FB Beauty to start this new brand. And Tom Allsworth, an entrepreneur who founded a skincare and hair care supplier called Medicare Manufacturing back in the early 90s. They both felt like there was something missing in the beauty market. In their opinion, you could either get high-end makeup if you're willing to pay like pretty much eye-watering prices for them, or you were stuck with affordable brands that weren't good quality and weren't keeping up with current trends and formulas and, you know, new innovation. This isn't an original story. I feel like this is how every beauty brand starts. And they decided that they were going to try and fill this gap by providing high-quality, trending products at affordable prices. Kind of sounds like Elf's origin story too, right? So in March of 2014, Minto and Allsworth launched Makeup Revolution, which would later just become Revolution Beauty as we know it today. The brand very quickly gained the attention of consumers who were intrigued by the incredibly frequent product releases, that kind of like, what's it called? Fast beauty, that again, Elf are so well known for, and I keep comparing them to Elf for a reason. The low prices and the often fairly decent quality of these products, like they weren't bad at all. The brand's message to consumers in those early days were pretty simple, right? Why pay £40 for a product when you could get the same look and feel for £8? The brand was heavily focused on making beauty accessible to everyone, and this didn't stop at price. Revolution built an image of inclusivity at the time when many legacy brands were being called out for their lack of diversity. Their foundations launched with broad shade ranges, their campaigns even featured diverse models, and they constantly reinforced the message that beauty was for everyone, regardless of budget, skin tone, or style. Now, obviously, this concept of accessibility wasn't completely unique. Minto and Allsworth certainly weren't the only people who tried to offer consumers good quality, trend-focused products at affordable prices, like I said, like Elf. But what they did do differently was the sheer speed at which they latched onto trends and brought new products to market. That's what really set them apart from other brands. And to be fair, it worked for them. In fact, it worked so well at first that by 2019, Revolution had been named in the Sunday Times Fast Track 100 as the fastest growing beauty brand in the UK. And from there, they went on to expand even further throughout the UK in major retailers like Superdrug and Boots, as well as expanding internationally into retailers like Target, Walmart, and Ulta. All the big main beauty retailers, right? By the early 2020s, Revolution Beauty was everywhere. They weren't just another drugstore beauty brand, they were one of the most dominant beauty brands around, especially amongst younger consumers. And that was partly because they were all over social media, literally everywhere. It got annoying. They latched into influencer marketing fairly early on, finding success first on YouTube and Instagram before replicating that success later on TikTok. But a huge part of their success on these platforms comes back to their fast fashion approach to beauty. They were always releasing new products, like all the fucking time. There was always something for influencers and consumers to talk about and review. It was non-stop. And by this point, they had also released a whole range of different lines under the Revolution Beauty umbrella. Revolution Pro, Revolution Skin, I Heart Revolution, XX Revolution, and so on. It got very confusing, and it was honestly quite unnecessary in my opinion. And with all those new lines came an even more hectic schedule of product releases. You can almost guarantee that if another beauty brand released a product that went viral, Revolution would have their own version of that within a matter of months. In fact, people were waiting. They were like, I won't buy that. I'll just wait for the Revolution dupe. This was something we hadn't really seen before to this extent. So many brands have created dupes of successful products over the years, like e.l.f. But this is kind of where the similarities stop, because when e.l.f. duped something, it looked like e.l.f. But when Revolution duped something, it looked like that brand, it was just owned by Revolution. Like, they duped hard. And this became what Revolution were known for. They were a dupe brand. They were the dupe brand. Some of their more popular dupes over the years include the Conceal and Define Concealer, which many say is a dupe of Tarte's Shape Tape, the Reloaded Iconic Forever Palette, which many think as a dupe for Urban Decay's Naked Heat palette, the Pro Miracle Cream and Serum, which fans say is a dupe for Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Cream and Serum. You know, fans of Revolution praise the brand pretty much for making these hugely iconic cult products accessible to everyone, but many critics accuse them of just ripping off more successful brands. Now, a lot of people didn't mind this too much or were outright supportive of it when it came to products sold by legacy or prestige brands, but consumers were pretty much outraged when Revolution did the same thing to smaller indie brands. For many, duping brands like L'Oreal, Tarte, Charlotte Tilbury wasn't too much of an issue. I also, at the time, before the events that we're going to talk about, quite liked this, because when you wanted to boycott these bigger brands for whatever reason, whatever moral reason you may want to, Revolution always had a very similar product you can use to kind of experience the same thing. That's why I personally quite liked it. But duping brands like Pink Honey, Too Faced, or Manny MUA's Luna Beauty was a step too far for many people. And on top of that, many believe that Revolution takes it too far with dupes, copying the packaging or names of products a little too closely to be able to reasonably claim it wasn't on purpose. It's worth noting that Revolution and their founders claim that they never knowingly copied other brands' products, but I'm not sure anyone's buying that at this point. The similarities are just too similar. It's pretty much like the first M&Co. Despite having always claimed to be an innovative brand, Revolution's success has been built on duplication, not innovation. And while many found it fun for a while, a lot of consumers were starting to get tired of Revolution's constant dupes, especially when there have been far more misses than hits in the recent years. It used to be that Revolution's dupes were often at least reasonable quality, but more and more often these days, they're just poor quality knockoffs. It's like they're just trying to make the packaging look similar, and there's already more than enough of that kind of thing on the market already. Beauty consumers don't need or want more of it. The declining quality of the products isn't the only issue the brand has faced since their rapid rise in the world of beauty. Probably the biggest controversy in Revolution's history hit the brand in 2022 when auditors refused to sign off on the brand's accounts for that year due to a variety of concerns that they had. One of the main issues they had was to do with Revolution's acquisition of Medicare Manufacturing in October of 2021, which you may remember from the start of the video is the company that co-founder Tom Olsworth owned. Revolution had agreed to buy the company for £26 million, but auditors were concerned that almost a year later, only £7 million of that had been paid, with the remaining £17 million being overdue. The auditors were also concerned about multiple personal loans that founders Minto and Olsworth had made to one of their employees, some senior directors of the company, as well as to some of their distributors. Auditors said that there were also loans and other investments of around £1 million, with one of Revolution's distributors, which they believe required further investigation. They actually pointed out that none of these loans or investments had been disclosed in the company's accounts. They also found issues with sales made to 3 of Revolution's key distributors who had also received undisclosed loans. They're just giving out money everywhere. The sales drew attention because they were significantly larger than normal orders, amounting to around £9 million, which auditors found suspicious, seen as they came right at the end of the financial year, believing that this may have been an attempt to falsely inflate sales figures. This all meant that Revolution had failed to publish their 2022 financial accounts on time, which in turn meant that their shares were suspended from trading on the stock market for 10 months. And this was a major blow for the company, as they had only entered the stock market the year before, and it had a significant impact on the brand's share price. As a result of the controversy, both Minto and Allsworth resigned from their roles with the company in November of 2022. After the investigation was completed, Minto entered into a settlement agreement with Revolution, agreeing to pay them a settlement sum of $2.9 million to avoid being taken to court by the company. And although it seemingly kind of put an end to this specific controversy, since then the running of Revolution has continued to be chaotic and very, very messy. When Minto stepped down, he was replaced by the interim chief operating officer, Bob Holt. Bob Holt was then forced to step down less than a year later when investors led by fast fashion brand Boohoo staged a boardroom coup, voting out the CEO, the CFO, and the chairman. This decision was reversed by the board of directors shortly after, with Holt and the other executives being rehired before an agreement was finally reached, which saw CEO Bob Holt and the company chairman Derek Zisman step down, but the CFO Elizabeth Lake would stay with the company. This all came after months of public arguments back and forth between Revolution's executive team and some of their biggest investors, which didn't exactly make the company look stable in any way, especially after the financial mismanagement issues, and definitely didn't help with the brand's stock price. Ultimately, the majority of investors decided that they needed a new executive team with the right experience to take the brand forward. But that decision also backfired for the investors, as we're about to see. As a result of the controversy and very public infighting, Revolution saw its share price drop from £1.70 per share when they first launched on the stock exchange to just 8.2 pence in December of 2022, after the issues with the finances had been revealed. So it wasn't a huge surprise that things got even worse when it came out that the brand were being sued by some former investors who saw the value of their Revolution shares drop by around 90% as a result of the financial mismanagement controversy. This was a terrible time. A terrible time to have this kind of drama surrounding the brand, especially seeing as they were, like every other brand, just trying to recover from the effects of the COVID pandemic during this period. And the reputational damage done to the brand seems to have been too much for them to recover from so far. So under the new CEO that the board brought in after firing, rehiring, and firing Bob Holt again, the company had plans to reach £1 billion in sales by 2030, with a recovery strategy aimed at getting the brand back on track. But that went out the window pretty quickly, seeing as since the controversy, they've just been desperately trying to stay afloat. There's been increased competition from brands like Elf, which have basically taken a huge chunk of Revolution's market, particularly as I mentioned earlier, because the quality of Revolution's product seems to be getting worse and worse, and Elf are just duping everything as well. But kind of in a better way. I mean, the quality was never amazing. It wasn't like, but when they first started, it wasn't too bad either. Some of the products were pretty decent. But in recent years, they seem to have moved more towards putting out tons of cheap rubbish rather than providing high quality products at affordable prices like they've always claimed they wanted to. On top of that, there's also been a shift in the beauty market away from cheap imitations of successful beauty products and more towards authenticity and innovation. I mean, dupes are still a thing, but not as big as they used to be. Revolution is a lot of things, but authentic and original isn't one of them, so it's no surprise that sales have continued to drop, with annual revenue falling by 26% in the 2025 financial year compared to 2024, which itself had already been a bad year for sales. All of this led to Revolution formally announcing in May of 2025 that they were looking to sell the company, resulting in a takeover bid by private equity firm True. However, This was rejected by Revolution's board as they felt their offer undervalued the company. They've actually since decided to just completely stop looking for a buyer and instead are looking to raise capital for their existing shareholders. But things have gotten so bad, in fact dire, for the brand that they've even decided to bring back the founders who left in disgrace just a few years ago. In August of 2025, it was announced that the company founders would be returning to help the brand fix their declining sales. Allsworth would rejoin as CEO this time, and Minto would come back in a consultancy role. They've got an awful lot of work to do to get things back on track, as things are looking pretty bad for Revolution at the moment. The brand's relevance and respect from consumers has fallen off a cliff in recent years. Like, it's really bad. Like, people don't even give a shit about them anymore, let's be honest. And they're gonna have to make major changes if they want to make a comeback. If I'm honest, things have never looked worse for Revolution Beauty. Since the controversy around the founders' financial mismanagement of the brand, Revolution seems to have been in a rapid downward spiral. And that's after becoming the fastest growing UK beauty brand within 5 years of launching. The brand's downfall has just been even faster. The company made a loss of 33.9 million in 2023 after the controversy first hit. This got a little better in 2024 when they reported profits of 11.4 million. That wasn't great at all, but it was better than making a loss of tens of millions. Unfortunately for them, it wouldn't last long though, as they made a pre-tax loss of 16.8 million in the 2025 financial year, and sales have continued to drop since then, with the first quarter of sales for 2026 financial year being 29% lower than the previous year. So after making a loss last year, it looks like the sales are going to be even worse for the brand this year. That's not good news, and the company's value has seen a similarly drastic fall in recent years. The company's share price climbed slightly once they were allowed to start trading on the stock exchange again, but it never made it back to anywhere near the heights prior to the controversy. The highest the share price has been since then is just 35.85 pence in December of 2023. But after that, it continued to plummet to its ridiculously low current price of just 2.7 pence per share in October of 2024. This means the brand's overall value has plummeted from around 500 million when they first went public on the stock exchange to around 12 million today. I mean, it remains to be seen exactly how founders Allsworth and Minto plan on dragging Revolution back from the brink, seeing as they were the ones who destroyed it in the first place, but whatever they're gonna do is gonna have to be drastic. Consumers have had enough of constant launch of poor quality products, a confusingly long list of sub-brands and product lines, and the overall lack of ingenuity or authenticity from Revolution. The beauty industry has shifted so much in recent years. What consumers want has changed, and so far Revolution has failed to keep up. So what do you think? Do you think the brand can make a comeback with the help of the original founders? Can they make the necessary changes needed to compete in today's beauty world? Or is Revolution Beauty finally dead? I'll be honest, I don't care. I think they were crap. They are still crap. People like dupes, but they don't like copies. And I think that's where Revolution goes wrong. For me, personally, I don't think anyone's gonna miss this brand when they finally die.